what's going on, everyone? Hope you're all doing well and had a good weekend. I had a rather stressful weekend myself. It kind of all started off on Friday when I started working on this build that's sitting right here, which is going to get featured on the channel very soon because I finally did figure out what the issue was with this PC after literally trying everything. And when I finally figured out what was wrong with it, it was not something that I had expected, and I was completely surprised that such a small thing was actually causing the problem that I was seeing. So it all started off on Friday. Like I said, I was putting together this system. It's running Ryzen 5 2600s. It's going to have an RX 580 in there, one of the Power Color Red Devil cards, in the brand new H500 case from NZXT, Kraken cooler and everything in there. It was going to be a kick-ass little sort of streaming system. I was kind of hoping to see what it can kind of do with like mid-range titles, like stuff like FORTNITE and streaming and that kind of thing like that, to see if it would be a good sort of mid-range build for people that are wanting to do that kind of stuff. So that is what this PC was going after. But unfortunately, right after I finished building it, all of the problems started to pile on because the system just wouldn't post properly. I couldn't get into the BIOS is basically what happened. The computer would actually turn on and I would see a blinking white line in the top left corner of the screen, and that's all that would happen. So I started troubleshooting. I started pulling out sticks of RAM, putting in different types of RAM and different RAM slots, sometimes a single stick, sometimes two sticks. And none of that really seemed to be resolving the issue. So I started to think it must be the motherboard, because even though the motherboard in there is brand new, I hadn't actually used it in the system before, so I don't have any proof that it works, but it's a brand new MSI X470 gaming M7 board. So one of their top boards here for the X400 chipset. So I didn't have any reasons to doubt the board, but after all the issues I was seeing, I figured it pretty much had to be either the CPU or the motherboard. So that's what I went about trying to fix today. So what I started out by doing was taking a B350 motherboard that I had, and I flashed the BIOS to the latest version so that it could support the Ryzen 5 2600. Put that inside the B350 Tomahawk motherboard, so also an MSI board just like I was planning to use in this system here. And it worked absolutely fine in the previous system that the motherboard was in. So I was like, okay, the CPU's working in this motherboard. It must have been a motherboard issue. So I go ahead and swap the B350 Tomahawk over into this case now, which had the other MSI board in it originally. And then it won't work in this case. I was like, well, how is this motherboard working in another case, but not in this case? So I was like, well, okay, well, maybe it's the CPU. So I put together just a makeshift test bed with the previous MSI board I had been using before, and I put the Ryzen 1300 in there that was inside of the old build with the B350 Tomahawk, and it booted. But then what I realized was like, well, how can this be booting outside of the system, but this motherboard wouldn't work before at all? And I now know that the CPU works because I've seen it operating in two different systems. So what the hell is it? Well, what I started to figure was it had to have been the graphics card, because I was actually using an RX 560 in the second system that I was working on here just to see if it would boot, because I didn't really think it would be the graphics card as the main source of the problem. But based on what I was seeing with a black screen with a white flashing logo, I was like, well, we have an image. I mean, it's displaying something, so the graphics card can't be broken. And I didn't think the graphics card would be broken anyway, because it's an RX 580 that I've been using for quite a while for testing, and I had no reason to believe there would be anything wrong with the card at all. And it actually wasn't the card itself, but what it was one of the DisplayPort connectors, and I couldn't believe that this was actually what was causing the problem. So as you can see, the graphics card is up and running right now. This is the RX 580 in the original motherboard that I have been using, the brand new MSI X400 series, X470 gaming M7 board. And I've got the Ryzen 1300 in that because the 2600 is still in the newer system that I'm planning to put this board in, but we now know that this motherboard works. We now know that the graphics card and the CPU in here is working. But the graphics card, originally what I was using a different port, so I'll go ahead and show you what was happening here now. If we go ahead and power this off really quickly, go ahead and power that down. Alright, now it's powered down. We'll go ahead and switch the DisplayPort cable over to the first DisplayPort slot that I was using previously, and we will power it on again and see what happens. And that's it. That's exactly what happens every single time if I boot it up like this. We just get the black screen with the white cursor floating up there in the top left-hand corner, which just was baffling me that that's the way that the issue was showing itself, because I would have thought we would have gotten nothing on the screen at all, not even a white line. But it just ended up being a faulty DisplayPort connector on the graphics card itself, because the other ones on there all work absolutely fine. So yeah, that was really it after all of that headache. So I guess I just kind of wanted to share this as, I guess, a cautionary tale for if you're out there, just built a system and you're trying to troubleshoot what could possibly be wrong with it. Before you give up on that system, try literally everything, because this is not like something I was expecting to have to try it with the DisplayPort cable. And after swapping motherboards out of the system entirely, pulling out power supplies, all this different stuff that I was trying to do, I literally tested everything. I tested the CPU, motherboard, I swapped out power supplies, different RAM configurations and the way that it was positioned in there, single slot versus dual slot. I tried everything along the way that I could possibly do to get this system to boot, and then at the end of the day, it ended up being the simplest thing. All I would have had to have done was pull out the DisplayPort cable and then move it about 2 centimeters upward, and it would have been golden. It would have been fine. I would have had a video out already on Friday for this system, but instead we got delayed here over the weekend. But now I'm just glad it's done. So the last thing I have to do is take this motherboard and I have to transplant it back into the new system, so that we could do a full overview of the video with some nice B-roll and benchmarks and everything like that, with some streaming and things along those lines thrown into it. So that's pretty much it at the end of the day. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on what you would have tested differently to begin with. Would you have thought it was the DisplayPort connector, honestly, with the problem that I was seeing? Because it didn't really even enter my mind as that being a possibility. Just a simple bad DisplayPort connector, which I have no idea how that got broken. Must have gotten shorted some way or another. Electrostatic discharge possibly. So anything's really possible, I guess. But I've been using this graphics card for ages, and I'm always pulling it in and out of systems. So I guess it was bound to be damaged. Maybe just from plugging in repeatedly to the same connector. Maybe just that wore it down. Really could have been anything. But at least I've got 2 other DisplayPorts on there that will still work absolutely fine. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, guys. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new, then don't forget to stick a like on it down below and subscribe if you're not already. If you haven't been here for a while, always consider ringing that notification bell. That way you never miss a moment of content on the channel. You'll get an email as soon as videos get posted. So you're here. You could possibly be that guy that says first. That just might be you. But I'm going to get out of here, and I will catch you guys tomorrow for another video. Ta-ra.